So, as I said, good morning to everybody. So my name is Michael Hurd. I'm the Education Business Partner, and you can contact me, michael.hurd@devon.gov.uk. So if you've got any questions after this session, please do feel free to get in contact. What I'd first want to do is just outline a little bit who Scomis are. So we are a specialist ICT support unit providing products and services to organisations within the education and local government sectors. Scomis Group is comprised of three sort of areas. We have Scomis Education, where we support 776 schools, which is now increased across over 52 local authorities. So we are a nationwide organisation. We also support the corporate IT across Devon County Council. So anything from a single laptop to a phone system, that's what we support as well. And we also support the customer service centre as well in Devon, so for citizen portals. We're a not-for-profit organisation and we're a wholly traded service, and we are part of Devon County Council. That's a bit more about us. Scomis started back in the 1980s. We're established for who we are in terms of supporting schools for the MIS. And as you can see over the time, this has now grown into many other services that we've actually been able to provide to schools. And lots of the services that we provide to schools are ideas that come from schools and organisations, federations or trusts, so we can actually find what we need to do to help schools and get better outcomes for children. We also have accreditations and awards, so we are an accredited SIM support unit. We pride ourselves on the customer service excellence for an SDI certified support desk. We adhere to the ISO standard for data security. We're members of ISBL and BISA. We won a BET award for our support in 2016, and we were a finalist earlier on this year. What our customers tell us, trusted in what we do and what we deliver and the advice that we give. We're very passionate in what we do as well, so that we can actually deliver the actual idea or outcome for the school or establishment. And we try to empower as many schools as possible to take on what those particular ideas are, so that we can actually make sure that we are giving the power back to you so that you can run with those ideas. And we also do a lot of that internally within Scomis as well. So let's talk a little bit today around reporting and managing data. So I see this in three ways. You collect data, you need to make sense of the data, and there's actions and evaluations. Now, all of those to me are interlinked. If we can't collect the right data, we can't make sense of it, and we can't put the right plans and actions. So let's break that down a little bit more. So if you're sitting at a trust, I'm sure you ask your schools for a lot of, it could be things like, oh, how many pupils are broken down into year groups of pupil premium, or what's your current pupil attendance, what exclusions do you have, what's your staff absence, what's your key stage 2 data. And we know obviously we have phonics coming up this month, so we're going to be probably asking schools for that data now as well. So in terms of trying to collect that data, what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to get it in a timely manner, but actually we need to let the schools know what they need to enter into their system so that we can know what we can get. And as it says right at the top, data can be challenging, because it is. It's knowing what you want as an output to know what you need to be able to do to collect that data. So it's really, really important that what we know is what we need to be reported on is what we're being asked for. And of course, the data gaps. What data isn't being recorded? What data is missing? Because actually, if we can't report on that, then we can't actually get that particular data. And especially, as I said earlier on, if you're part of a multi-academy trust or a federation, then actually trying to get data from school can be sometimes very time-consuming, and it's also in consistent formats. And of course, if we don't get the right formats, we sometimes get rubbish in, rubbish out. And if the data isn't being collected correctly, or if data gaps, then again we have that rubbish in, rubbish out effect. And then trying to make sense of what we've just collected. So we need to all the data will need to be analysed to be interpreted to identify the problem. So again, it's really key that we understand what's being collected so that we know how to do that. And once we can start making sense of that data, we can then put the right action plans in for the pupils or a cohort or for the school or a year group, so that we can start making those action plans absolutely tangible and with the right sort of outputs, so that we get the right conclusions that we're looking for. But it all goes back to collecting that data. And we need consistency across maths when you start analysing data. Very easy to say, very difficult to do. And that's where we've been working with many trusts over the years to help with that. And hopefully you'll see that a little bit later. But from our point of view, is the more consistent the data, the better the entry, the better the sense of the data. So once you can start making sense of that data, you can start putting those right action plans in, as we just said. But inconsistent data will give you difficulty. So you can't translate that data, so you don't know what you're actually talking about, or you'll have to go back to the school to re-get the data again, which is very time consuming. Or if you can't actually analyze the data, then you can't really put those action plans in quick enough to be able to get those pupil outcomes that you're looking for. So let's look at the action and evaluation. So from that point of view, outcomes of the sense-making process can lead to different types of improvement actions. So if we've collected the right data and we've made sense of it, then absolutely we can put those plans in place and we can start moving those actions very, very quickly. And implementing an action plan based on data is just not an easy task either. And the reason why I say that is it's not just based on hard data. So, for example, if you're looking at assessment, for a particular grade for a child, or for example, if you're excluding a pupil, I know you have to record the data, but what about all the comments and what about all the teacher information? So this is why it's really important that we try and record hard data and the soft data as well. So the soft data is the knowledge of those individuals. And I think one of the biggest tasks for evaluating any data is making sure that getting data from several schools is in a consistent format, and it needs, it just needs to be right. Because if we don't get that, it can take time. It's time consuming for the trust as well, but also inconsistent data and inconsistent format doesn't mean anything to anybody. And that's where you have to then go back around the start of the loop again to get that. And I'm sure, as I'm saying this, I'm sure there's a few people nodding their heads. So what we did, we spent a lot of time talking to multi-academy trusts, and we thought, well, what information needs to be consolidated? So we then took SIMS and we broke it down into this wheel. So we looked at pupil records and attendance and assessment. We looked at interventions, conduct, send, and personal data from staff. And then we started asking questions of, well, what data do you need to record? And it was very clear that every multi-academy trust that we approached, there were some consistencies and there was some data that other trusts wanted to record but didn't know how to go about it. So by showing this particular wheel, that all this information can be retained in SIMS. There can be more, but we started at this particular point. So all the schools that we work with use SIMS. So from that point of view, we were able to produce a system that is able to pull out the data, put it into a report that is static in terms of can't be changed, and it's then easily recorded. The reports then would come overnight into the system, and from that point of view, we don't really need to ask the schools to produce the reports, but just making sure that the schools enter the data on a timely fashion. And the data that you're seeing is the data that would have been captured overnight, so i.e. yesterday's data. So let's jump in another live demonstration of what we've actually created. So let me just move my screen. Okay, so this is running in a web browser. I've made it full screen, and this is using Power BI technology. So we take care of the licensing that's needed for this, and it's a standard dashboard. So we can't make any tweaks for a particular trust. But the information coming out is standard for what information needs to be recorded. So it's driven on a menu system. So from this point of view, I could say, right, well, let me just go into the pupil data. And what this is going to do is provide me a dashboard for the total number of pupils. It's broken down male, female. It's giving you the numbers and the percentages. We've also been able to break that down into term of birth, pupil premium, free school meals. We're also given the overall percentage for pupil premium, free school meals, and SEN and EHCPs in the middle. So you know as a trust what your percentage is related to your total pupils. So all of this is very interactive. And in terms of the actual dashboard itself, I can also see at the bottom here the year groups for all the pupils, so I can actually see our totals broken down very quickly, and also first language as well. We've also created a filter system built into the dashboard where I can click this, and what this will do is it will bring up for me a filter, so we can actually see all the other options I might want to start filtering down on within this group. One of the key areas we've got down here is we can actually still pin down individual schools. And we can also, where you might be working in multiple hubs or hub models or clusters, where we can identify those schools, we can bring this data together to say, I just want to see some Devon schools or some Somerset schools, and it'll only bring that data together on the dashboard as well. So we're able to look at from a top view, a hub view, and down to an individual establishment. Across the top, we've created a very simple menu that you can actually just drive from. So I can now move on to looking at attendance, for example. So this is now breaking down every school's attendance on a monthly basis. As I said, it's literally calculating it as of yesterday. So I can see present, unexplained, authorised, and persistent. With persistent, we can see the total number of pupils and, of course, the percentage that's related to as well. And with this at the top right corner, we've created a graph to show this year's data compared to last year's data compared to year 3. So at any point, we can actually go and actually have a look at where we were. So very, very quickly, we can see this. Of course, if I click on any of these particular schools, the actual data itself will then start to filter down into those particular areas. So again, I can see those areas. So where I think I might be dropping below national standard of attendance, this is where we can actually see in a little bit more detail overall where those particular schools' bits of information are. And of course, this then drives the conversations then back to the schools to understand what maybe the plan is to improve attendance, for example. Again, we have the same filter system here built in. So again, you can actually choose pupil premium. You can say what's boy for male or female, in care, SEN, to all the key KPIs that are required. We also been able to bring through data on pupil exclusions. So this can also bring back multiple years and current year. The dashboard itself gives us an overall number, breaking down male, female, and of course percentages. It's also given me the type of exclusion, if it's fixed or permanent, and the actual reason for exclusion as well. And of course, then we've got a little bit of detail down here where I can see the school, the pupil name, which academic year, because we are able to filter this table a bit like Excel, so we can click these tables and actually put them in a particular order that we're after. And of course, we're able to filter, because this is a dashboard, interactively on. So I could say, for example, show me physical assault against a pupil. I can click that, and then it will just will bring the information down very, very quickly. Now, earlier when I mentioned about soft data, so lots of things in Sims are boxes that you tick, or you say yes, no, or you put date ranges in. But there are quite a number of boxes as well where you can actually type comments. And in some of the examples, for example, I'm showing here in my Bellworthy Primary School, a exclusion was recorded, but no comments. But at Fulraker Primary School, there are comments. So this is then giving more information back to the trust about why that actually happened. So it gives you a better idea of where you could help maybe plants and resource. And of course, the filter system's there as well, exactly the same, all the parameters, because you might want to say, is it free school meals pupils? Is it pupil premium? Is it a particular cohort? So we can easily work with that. Then moving on, we started looking at school assessment. So if you use Sims to record data, we have consultants that will be able to talk you through some of this. And we're able to very easily work with the early years framework. Now, this isn't the new framework that the DFE is working on. However, we are aware there are many schools using that. And once the DFE has signed that framework off, we will produce the right reports for the new framework and we will embed it. But just to give you an example, if I click EYFS, I can easily see if data is being recorded in Sims, we can easily use the academic year just here. We can do baseline. We can then go through autumn, spring or summer. Or if you record more than that once a year, 3 times a year, sorry, then you can easily pull that through as well. We can also then break that down into the individual goals as well. So we've got the overall EYFS, and then we can go down to the individual goals within the system itself. Then we actually looked at the school assessment. So anything from year 1 through to year 6. So again, if you've got something that you're using already, and we do know that trusts are using this to a degree, so we can actually see the data that's being entered at schools, it gets pulled overnight, and we can very quickly choose the academic year, the assessment term, the subject, the combined reading, writing and maths, the ARE, the grade by subject overall by trust, grade by year group overall by trust, and then we can see all the schools breakdowns. But again, at any point you can actually say, let me just look at Huxley Primary School. I can click this, and this table on the left hand side at the bottom will change so you can actually see the reflective numbers. The ARE and combined, we will be making some changes to that up and coming, so that will reflect that as well. But very quickly, that data has been brought through just overnight, so we don't for example, in here, I've got about 30 schools of demo data coming in. So I would need to sit through and sift through 30 schools of trying to combine the data and make sense of it. From that point then, we then looked at some of the statutory reporting that primary schools have to do. So from early years all the way up to Key Stage 2. So a common one that's going to be coming up this month is Phonics Year 2. So Phonics Year 2, all you would do is enter the details into Sims as you would normally would. We have some specialist reports that we can put in, and that data will then just come out overnight. So I can then see all of my scores and how they're performed across the ranges. This is exactly the same for Phonics Year 1 as well. And again, basing on the EYFS data for where the children are, I don't have any baseline or demo data at the moment for this, but this will bring out all the information very much like it would if it was school assessment. So again, very simple to bring that data together. And of course, we also do Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Of course, there's no data being recorded last year. I can't bring that through, but we are having a plan. There's no time frame on that at the moment to work with national data, so we can start bringing that data in a different way. So this is Key Stage 1, so we can clearly see all the data coming through, and we surface probably a bit more data than is actually needed for a multi-academy trust. So you can actually see that, especially looking now at Key Stage 2. So I'm just using the menu system on the left-hand side here, so we can quickly go back and look at any of these elements. So, for example, we know for Key Stage 2, we know that the progress is actually monitored as a multi-academy trust. So we actually then bring that through on an individual basis, but a total calculation based on the data that's been recorded overall for the trust. So as you can see here, I've got a few gaps with schools that haven't recorded any data. So that would need to be addressed. So this then gives me the correct picture. However, for Key Stage 2, we also then bring through reading, writing, maths, GBVS and RMW. So of course, if that data is there, which it should be, because all this information can be downloaded from the government websites and inputted into Sims, and we also give schools reports as well that they can see and run directly from the Sims system. So that's in terms of pupils. We then started looking at staff absence. So staff absence was a point of trying to collect data. So again, if that is recorded in Sims fully from the start date, end date, that will then work out the working days lost. But also it gives you a bit of an idea of what's actually going on within the schools as well. So if you're working with any staff members that may be long-term sick or sporadic days that will build up to a Bradford factor, this will give all the trusty information that you need, provided it's recorded. And of course, we've got the absence types here as well. So we know that now schools are recording COVID, for example, that will start to bring through that particular information. Now the filter is slightly different because we're looking at staffing, so we can search for staff members. If we can just focus on teaching staff, we can go down to roles, employment type, service term, and again you can just pick on particular schools if you feel there's a particular area that you need to concentrate on. And of course you've got the cluster, region and hub as well. So if you're looking after a particular hub, so you're a business manager for example, you can easily have a look at that. We then started looking at the demographic of the trust itself. So this certainly helps with succession planning. This is giving you a lot of information in one place. So total number of staff that's within schools, broken down to male, female, by contract type, by age range, by school, by staff count, by FTE, by role, by ethnicity. So again, you can start looking at this in many ways. So here we can start to see, for example, that I might want to think about looking at teachers. So the graph then changes, and I might want to be thinking to myself, do we have any teachers that might be coming up for retirement that we need to think about replacing? Or it could be that we are looking at management roles within schools, so deputy heads, assistant heads, head teachers that may be coming up for retirement, or maybe where the budget's tight across the trust and we need to start thinking about maybe bringing heads working together. So maybe the executive model, for example. So this gives you a lot of information within one particular screen. We then started to look at, and this is at a request by a particular trust. So in schools, we have a single central register. What this does is it focuses on staff. So this is a staff single central register. So in Sims, 3/4 of the information is already recorded against a single staff central record. What we then normally find is it's entered, say, the other quarter and then double entried into maybe an Excel document or, for example, a Word document. So from this point of view, what we're trying to demonstrate is actually if you just enter the extra quarter, you can do a lot with that information being recorded, and the trust can then see all the personal information for all those particular staff members. Now, because this is personal information, what we're able to do for each user account that uses this is turn off functionality. So we can say, if you're only interested in staffing, you can see certain staff areas, but maybe not a single central staff register. Or if you're only interested in education, you can turn off all staffing. So during installation, we can provide those types of permissions as well. The other area we started to look at is working with DPOs. So for example, on here, we started to work out very quickly that information that is being recorded in Sims around user permissions. And we found that many staff have a lot of permissions for things that they probably don't need access to. So this is really a screen generated for the data protection officer, the DPO, so that we can actually share what needs to be done or updated in terms of functionality. And then the final screen is we're actually surfacing Ofsted data. So as soon as we can see there's the latest Ofsted data to download, we're taking that data and then it's applied to your schools. So you can clearly see in all of your schools then what their current Ofsted status is, when was the last inspection. What we've also seen with certain trusts as well, where they work over multiple authorities, be it Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, so forth, where actually you might want to look at the breakdown in the top left-hand corner. So again, this is quite interactive because you might want to say, okay, just show me all my outstanding scores, and we can do that. It can be done very, very quickly. So that's the managed reporting service in terms of the product itself. I'm just going to flick my screen back so we can finish up the presentation. Okay, so just to sum up, because I whizzed through those screens quite quickly. So this particular service is designed for multi-academy trusts. It's not for federations in terms of maintained federations at the moment due to how data is collected, and it's not for single schools at the moment either. It is for the multi-academy trust. And the service will include taking pupil data, exclusions, school assessment, providers recorded in SIMS, statutory assessment, again, providers recorded in SIMS, staff absence, staff demographics, the staff single central record that we can pull through, user permissions and Ofsted data. Now, I mentioned earlier on that we have many customers already using this particular service. So we have Plymouth Cast, so Helen Brown, we work very, very closely with to understand what the needs were for Cast. We work with Adele Pope on the HR side to understand how to bring data across 35 challenging schools. And this has been very refreshing to collect that data very, very quickly. We've also worked with the Link Academy Trust. They were one of the first early adopters for us. So Nikki Dunsford, the CEO, is absolutely delighted with what we've done. So we're super impressed with how we've been able to work with them, and also Nikki's already given us some further ideas of how we can move that on. And of course, First Federation with Angela Jenkins, many staff in First Federation are now using this particular service, from pupil data to exclusions, so forth. And they're again absolutely super impressed with how we've been able to move all their assessment data around very, very quickly, so the information is calculated in a timely fashion. How does it work? It's basically a subscription to the service. So there's a yearly subscription fee. There is a one-off setup cost. Now, within that setup costs, we do all the implementation for you. So it doesn't matter if you're hosted with us or not hosted, or you're a single site with SIMS on site. We're able to give the details and actually bring that across. What then actually happens after the installation is our consultant will actually start to look at the dashboard before we hand it over, and start to give an audit of where we feel the data is right or the data is missing, so that we can absolutely bring that together for you, so that you know where those gaps are. And we can also work with your particular priorities as well. Once we've done that, we'll arrange a training session to hand over your dashboard. Once we've actually completed that, we'll also then hand over the audit as well. Now, we then advise a follow-up straight after that, and that's all included in the price, so that we can understand where your thinking is, what you need to do. There are some things that schools can do very, very quickly, and of course, breaking down all the training requirements if you would like us to do that. And again, we provide that quote for you free of charge. What we also have built into the service as well is, as trusts are growing, at a rapid rate, we can add a maximum of 5 schools in the year at 0 cost. We can easily do that, put the reports in to bring that on board. That's all included within the price as well. Okay, so at this point, I'd normally say if you want some information, you can contact us. However, if you can get your smartphone out and turn on the camera, if you scan that barcode, it should give you all the information you need following this presentation. Now, I can see some questions coming through. I can see Sharon couldn't join us for long, so I'm more than happy to send across the information. So how do you get data from SIMS is the easiest way. It is CSV reports, that's correct. Brian, I'm more than happy to do that for you. We can certainly do that. I'm sorry that you're in rural Devon. I live in North Devon, so I sympathise. So, Rich, I'm quite happy to pick this up offline if you like to talk about the CSV files. I'll be more than happy to have that conversation with you. Well, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining this webinar. And certainly if you've got any other questions, do contact the service desk. Don't forget to follow us on social media as well. So we're on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But if you've got any questions about this or how to bring data in, then do contact our service desk, 01392 385 300, or send us an email at scomis@devon.gov.uk. But also visit our website. So our website does have the managed reporting service link on there as well. So I'd like to draw this to an end, and just would like to thank everyone for coming along to this webinar.